St. Paul, The Fan.
Welcome back. Final hour, 9 to noon of a Friday football feast. Charge out of the mix today. He should be back next week for a lot of post-combine related conversation as the announcer, as he would refer to himself. Paul Allen will be on site Tuesday and Wednesday doing radio shows. You'll get to hear from the head coach, Kevin O'Connell. You'll get to hear from the general manager, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. And maybe there'll be some pre-combine related conversation with our next guest, Matt Birk, at Birk Matt via Twitter. Based on the text line, I know a lot of our listeners know said Twitter account very, very well. How you doing, Birk?
Hey, is this Friday football feast or is it a fast? Are we fasting? It's Lent. It's Friday. We're feasting here.
Feasting,
fasting on football.
Feasting, fasting, and folly.
Okay.
What about a Friday fish fry feast?
That's fine, too.
We can do that.
Yeah, for sure. What about a Friday, let's say it's a Philly Friday feast, because say I'm flying to Philadelphia a little later today. You happen to know anything I can bring on the plane where I can carry all my stuff in one bag?
You mean like a Heritage Gear bag?
You tell me.
I don't know. You could.
You tell me.
You could. Are you going to Philly today?
No, I'm not.
Oh.
But for the purpose of Heritage Gear and aiding veterans, yeah, I looked at your Twitter feed to try to get a few things ready this morning, and there it is at Birk Matt, where
the kids call it X now, by the way, just so you know.
Cool. I love what you put in the bio thing, the bio area. I don't believe everybody was kung fu. Wait a second, I don't want to get the station sued, but everybody was kung fu fighting.
Those cats were fast as lightning.
Yeah. I love that. But there's the pinned tweet about Heritage Gear and the veterans, and that's so it's a Friday for heading to Philly. If you're heading to Philly on a Friday, then think about Heritage Gear. You got a website for that?
Think about it, heritagegear.com.
What's that website?
heritagegear.com.
My left headphone went out. I could only hear it on one side of my brain. What was it again?
heritagegear.com.
What do players do this time of the year? Is it the fat and happy season? I mean, it's like fat and happy. Eat what you want, nap when you want. Just go ahead and get fat, be happy, and move on.
I think for some guys, it depends. Some guys, the season ended, now we're going on like 7 weeks. So you better be coming out of your rest phase by now. But if you went deep into the playoffs or played in the Super Bowl, you're probably still resting. But I was never a rest kind of guy. Take a few days off and get back in there because, I was always paranoid about losing my job and just felt like, what else is there to do? If you're a professional football player, you don't really have a side hustle, or you shouldn't, right? So season ends. Okay, that's good. I'm going to, maybe take a little trip or just hang out on the couch or whatever, take the kids at school. But after that, it's like there's 24 hours in a day. You got to do something. You can spend an hour or two working out. And, at least when you go to bed at night, you feel like, well, I did something
right
today that made me a little bit better professionally.
And then that, the age-old cliche or the age-old adage, an empty mind is the devil's playground.
Idle time is the devil's playground.
I've heard it multiple ways, but
you haven't.
For the purpose, given you're the guest, idle time can be the devil's playground. That would be this time of the year, right? I mean, where fat stacks of cash. It's nothing really on the horizon. Got your contract set and everything. That's where some weird things can pop in there and derail dreams.
Well, that's where it becomes being a professional. You might not have any official team activity until off-season workouts start in March or mini camps in April. So you say, oh, it's like summer vacation. When you went on summer vacation as a kid, did you get the reading list? It's like, okay, you're going home for 3 months, but here's the list, and you got to read these 3 books over the summer, and you're thinking, I got all summer, right? And then about August 24th rolls around, and you're like, yes, exactly.
Mom, can you read this and take notes for me?
We go find the Cliff Notes version of where the red fern grows.
I would not have graduated high school if my mom had not done a majority of my work for me.
Well, but it's just, in a football sense, it just comes down to being a professional. And you're like, hey, I know these dates are coming, but I am paid year-round, even though they pay you during the season, but you're paid enough and you're paid year-round to keep yourself and tip-top physical condition. So when you show up in March or April, you're ready to go.
I texted Nordo this yesterday. We were chatting about something football related. I think the controversial potpourri we just unfurled. And I said to him, the Lions were the third best team in the NFL right now. Is that too much love for the Detroit Lions? I mean, okay, I know Cincy with Joey Swag. Well, that's a problem. And Philadelphia when they get things squared away, but I'm not that bad boy may be heading the wrong way.
Philly might be broken.
Well, this thing might be. I mean,
it might be broken.
If ProFootballTalk.com, this thing I read yesterday, with legitimate sources, is accurate. I mean, wow, the fragility, the fragile nature of Sirianni, the whatever. It's like they're head of security. So
yeah, that's
what would
weird.
it be? Kim Clawiter into Dave Corus here. Who was the head of security when you were with the Vikings?
Well, Kim came in.
Okay.
Before that, it was.
Who was it?
Oh, Bob Hagan will know.
Yeah. Who is it?
Steve Rollins?
Steve Rollins. Thank you.
There we go.
Yep. After him, time for two more, and they were Clawiter and now Dave Corus.
Man, Kim Clawiter scared the heck out of me a couple of times early on at the fan.
Icy stare.
Well, we would do shows out at the old Winter Park. Mm-hmm. And we're sitting out there on the perch.
Yep. Outside of Kevin Warren's office.
Correct. And there were two occasions. One where, I mean, he would just appear from the freaking mist, first of all. So impressive talent on its own. Mm-hmm. And it was hand right up near my chest. He never touched me, but it was just, and he's an older guy, certainly. But at the same time, it's like you don't mess around with him and you have all the answers immediately or you're not getting into that office. And I remember I told you about it, and you're like, oh, it's all, Kim's a great guy once he gets to know you, and he certainly was. But then later on in the show, he's just wandering and weaving through the trees on the fence line.
Of course.
Near the end of the property.
Yeah, I mean, Green Bay goes to just large extents or creative extents to try to steal plays during the course of a season.
Well, and the New York Giants, they just tap your headsets, right?
Well, and Kim had the watch.
Copyright 2000, well done.
He had the Casio. He had the Casio calculator watch with the choke wire that came out of it.
Yeah.
So he was ready for any situation at any time.
So the I can't remember the director of security for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Big Dom.
But
Big Dom.
So he puts hands on, bumps Dre Greenlaw. All right, for the 49ers. Yep. All right, so my big guy, Big Dom's leaving the field. All
Big
negative.
Dom gets escorted out.
Got escorted out. Well, the NFL was like, bro, I mean, you're right next to the coach. This is an image-based game to a certain extent, and you can't do that. You're done for the year. So Sirianni opened up to somebody like, or somebody said that, things went pear-shaped with the Eagles. ProFootballTalk.com is where you can read it. Because Sirianni missed Big Dom.
Yeah.
It's like, and it made sense, but it was like he gets, Sirianni gets very emotional on the sidelines and argues with players and coaches unless Big Dom's there.
Yeah, it's a weird story. It's a weird thing.
Isn't it crazy?
You're head coach of a National Football League team and you can't regulate your emotions. You need your emotional support animal there.
How about that?
And the way that it went so bad for the Eagles after 10-1, 11-1, and then lost, every game.
It's his therapy guy.
Once you lose your team, once a head coach loses a team in the NFL, I would venture to say it's almost impossible to get them back. Number one, because it's just a really hard thing to do. And number two, in these days, an owner isn't going to give you 2 years to re-earn the trust of your team, right? Yeah. So it'll be, you want to talk about like, as funny as it kind of sounds, hot seats. Yeah. If the Eagles come out next year and start off 2-4 in Philly,
Berkey,
he's gone.
Berkey, it's near the end of the season. It finished, they lose at home to the Arizona Cardinals.
And they lost to the Giants.
Yes. Well, yeah, but that was that weird, we're going to pull everybody at the end of the year, to get them fresh for the playoffs. The week before that, they lose at home to the Arizona Cardinals in a game they had to have. They needed it. So that was the eye-opener right there for the veterans, where it's kind of like, we got a problem here. I don't know what the problem is, but Jalen Hurts is 85% of who he mentally who he used to be, and we know he's better. But I couldn't, and others could not put the metaphorical finger on the problem. But you knew it came back to the coach. You just didn't know what it was. Now the story comes out that he's missing Nookie Blanky Big Dom. And I'm starting to be like, Rob, how did he get hired in the first place if he's that emotionally unstable on a sideline where, by the way, the fan and the NFL have learned it gets hot and tense down there.
Well, and there's been some weird moments with him. I know there was when they played Dallas, I think 2 years ago, and it was kind of towards the end of the game, and maybe they got a first down to ice the game, and it was over.
Was he waving?
Yeah, I think this is when he was yelling. He's known to use a profanity or two. He yelled something across the field. There's in Kansas City this year. They beat Kansas City at Arrowhead. Yeah, kind of their revenge from the Super Bowl. He was walking off the field, and right when he got in the tunnel, that's just not becoming of a head coach in the National Football League. Yeah. And so it's
agreed.
It's a weird deal. And, it's going to be really interesting, especially in that market, that fan base, just how unique that whole thing is. Yeah. It's going to kind of be must-see TV at the beginning of next year.
I don't care if it's old school Woody Hayes, Frank Kush, or Bill Parcells, or it's now Sirianni, Sean Payton, losing he lost his cool on Russell. I don't care if Russ is going to the HOF or not. It's talking to and or treating human beings like that in virtually any setting is so immature and juvenile and ridiculous that to hear that Sirianni does it, but he can't control himself unless Big Dom is there. There are just so many tentacles that can work off of this.
Yeah, it just doesn't really work these days anymore. And, like a Bill Parcells, different time, but also, you would see Bill Parcells berate somebody on the sidelines. But you didn't see what was going on behind the scenes, too. Like, you can, as a player, you're a man, coach is a man, so there should be some mutual respect there. Now, I played for Mike Tice. Mike Tice was known to let you know exactly how he was feeling at a certain time during the game. And
Brad Childress would whip out his thesaurus and instead of yelling, use words that nobody understood to get the point across.
Him and Brian Billick.
Brad's super smart.
But you can build up enough credibility. And listen, it gets hot. It gets emotional on the sidelines. Things happen. John Harbaugh doesn't come unhinged, but John Harbaugh could come over during a game and let the O-line know that it's not good enough right now in no uncertain terms.
I can never see him yelling at somebody on the sideline.
He's changed now. Harbs is in his 60s. He's been doing this forever, going on 2 decades. But, when he was younger and a little bit more fiery. But he had built up that equity and that respect that you understood it was coming from a good place.
Yeah.
And,
that's so important.
And so you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But the way that it's certainly a bad optic with a Sirianni or what Sean Payton did to Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
To somebody like Russell Wilson, the quarterback, probably HOF, you just can't do that.
Right.
You just can't do that to somebody because it's going to be all over social media. It's going to be all over media. And there's no good way to spin that.
Unless you're so arrogant that you don't care.
Well,
because you're above social media, you're above the shield, you're above the owner and general manager of the team. Because, by the way, before you coached your first game, you do an interview with USA Today, and you're basically like, last year, he thought it all was off the record background, but nevertheless, that wasn't all on Russ.
Fault, yeah.
It was everybody's fault, and I mean the
organizational failure,
general manager, and savaged Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah.
In a way, that's the worst job of coaching I've ever seen in my life. I was so happy when the Jets rolled in there with Hackett and beat his ass.
You do that to a player, what he did to Russell Wilson. He wasn't thinking about Russell Wilson. He wasn't thinking about the team. He wasn't thinking about the Denver Broncos. He was just thinking about himself, and it's just sort of like a alpha male move. Like, I'm just gonna show you who's boss.
So I think as of now, Cincinnati might be the third best overall team. What about your squad, the Ravens?
I'm viewing it a third best.
I think the Lions absolutely should be in that conversation.
I don't think so. I wouldn't say top 3. If you had to have me rank teams, I don't think I would put the Lions.
Chiefs Niners out of respect from last year. Okay. So then where do you go after that?
You could say Ravens.
Really?
You could say Bills.
No, I can't say. Bills are way too befuddling, enigmatic, mercurial, and dysfunctional.
I don't know if I'd say dysfunctional.
They get right to the finish line of a big game and they start yelling at each other.
I don't think the Bills roster is what it was a few years ago. Yeah. I think I was really impressed with Josh Allen this year. I thought he played.
Me too.
few more turnovers than normal, but he had to do more.
Yeah.
He had to carry the load. Diggs.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that a descending deal? Gabe Davis is hurt all year. It was.
Why can't people warm up to the Lions? Is it just?
I love the Lions. When you say top three, to me, it's just a line. It's above the line, below the line.
They don't make two mistakes in the fourth quarter decision wise, they're in the Super Bowl.
Well, I understand that, but to me, it's just above the line, below the line. If the Lions and 49ers play 10 times, probably 5-5, or 6-4, right? They're both right there. Do you have the potential, if you're playing your kind of ball, if you're playing well, if a couple guys get hot, can you win the Super Bowl? The Lions are certainly above that line.
Okay.
Yeah, they can do it.
Right.
I wouldn't put them as a favorite. I don't know if I'd say they're one of the top three, but they're in the top 6, 7, 8 for sure.
In fairness, because I mean we've seen this, it's age old, and you played it, man, for nearly a decade and a half, and you got a ring. Is teams will jump up and hey, they haven't done this in 30 years, haven't done this in 30 years, and they got the quarterback and the nice O-line and blah blah blah. Well, handling prosperity and everybody telling you how good you are.
Sure.
Frequently, because human nature, the fan has learned, gets to win occasionally too, is you can be told how good you are for so long, and then all of a sudden you fall back a little bit, and you just can't push that button and get it to go where it went the previous year. But I don't think that'll be a problem with them because of their head coach.
The thing about Detroit that I don't love is I feel like the defense is shaky. Mm-hmm. I feel like now they did a nice job of bend, not break.
Yeah.
But then you did see that there were times where they broke.
Well,
and when they broke, it was bad.
And you're right. I mean, I completely agree. But that's why I've said for basically 2 weeks, and I ain't trying to run him out of town. I mean, I really, 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 really hope Danielle Hunter still plays here. But Danielle's coming off the best overall season of his career because of the way he played the run.
Yes.
Second season stand-up guy, where I'm like a 4-3 left defensive end, Danielle Hunter, that's the bomb. I mean, he's as good as anybody in the NFL playing that spot. Well, they run a 4-3 mostly in Detroit, and they have requisite cash to pull somebody from a team in the division. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You go ahead and book in that Hutchinson monster with Danielle, left defensive end. Now, all of a sudden, how's your secondary look?
Well, the secondary just got a lot better.
You know what I'm saying?
And now you might be top three. you might get to top three. To your point about prosperity and kind of getting soft, what's everybody's record right now?
0-0.
Doesn't matter what you did last year, and you do right. Human nature does play into it.
Yeah,
it's so hard to put your finger on it, but I'll just go back to 1998, 15-1. We lose the NFC Championship game.
Oh, wow.
Thought we shouldn't have lost.
Yep.
Oh, we're hungry. We're going to come back. Well, you forget that all offseason everybody else was working hard and they were gunning for you, and you were watching film, and you think we're just going to pick up where we left off. It never happens that way.
Right.
Every team is different. You got to kind of figure out.
And you have the same players, mostly.
For the most part, the nucleus is there. But sometimes losing a guy here and there, you think a role player, a special teams guy or whatever, it makes a difference. It just makes a difference. But you've got to, it's like the story of Sisyphus. He pushes Sisyphus. He pushes the stone all the way up the hill. Right when you get to the top, the stone rolls all the way back to the bottom.
On,
and you got to push it up again.
Yeah.
And you really do have to start it. And that's why I give so much credit to the Chiefs. Mahomes says it, and he believes it. And I think he believes it the way that he attacks his job and the work that he has to do, and everybody else does it. You've got to start over every single year. Mm-hmm. Every single year you start from zero. And so, we were explosive. We scored 40 points a game. We did this, this, and this. It doesn't matter. When you show up in March or April, it's like you've got to develop and build that whole thing again. You're starting from scratch. You're starting from the bottom of the hill with the stone. And a lot of guys don't want to admit that, or you don't want to have that kind of mindset, but that's the way it is. I mean, every year we're surprised by teams that jump up, but we're also surprised by teams that take a step back. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think that any of us thought that the Vikings were going to win 13 games again this year.
I put them on 10 or 11, right around 9, 10, 11, something like that.
It's hard to say with Kirk getting hurt and this and that, but, every year there's teams that you think are going to be contenders, and they come out and they just, what's wrong with so-and-so? You just don't know. And so then that's partly human nature, but that's just part of, everything changes, nothing stays the same, and every year you gotta rebuild the house.
You want the good news or the better news?
Give me the good news.
Down memory lane we go.
We can do that all day of the week. I mean, since you've been stopping by the Covenant on a weekly basis, I think if we do Thursdays, maybe Fridays.
Down memory lane we go.
It's like 99, I immediately want to go to, okay, well, what happened to Randall Cunningham off the MVP season?
Who knows?
Then I start thinking 02 because Chris Walsh was a special teams demon for your 98 and your 99 squads. That causes me to hearken to Lambeau Field. Unbelievably chilly Sunday night.
Oh.
You're going to pull the upset as a 10-point dog. You got every call going against you in the fourth quarter, and you're going to win the game. And Chris Walsh catches a pass and declares himself down.
Down memory lane we go.
And here comes rookie corner Anton Edwards. They drafted him, Mike McNair. It was that draft right around there. They drafted everybody to combat Moss. And Walsh declares himself down.
Right.
And Edwards blasts him.
Yep.
So I'm on my binoculars. All right. Greg Coleman is sideline analyst.
Is this your first year calling
very
games?
First year.
Yeah.
Coleman is down in the scrum. All right, so he's got, I'm watching him through my military field binoculars, which I had brought for that trip, and he's on the microphone, and Coleman has Bernardo Harris. This is by the back it's what's the penalty called when
horse collar?
Thank you. By the horse collar before horse collar was even a thing. He's pulling him off Corey Withrow on the microphone, saying, "Guys, a fracas is broken out down here. We have a melee." And I'm like, "It's melee. We have a melee down here." And Bernardo Harris got out of the grip of Coleman and ran at Withrow. And through my binoculars, man, I mean, Corey Withrow, I've never seen a human being more mad than Withrow. First of all, you're playing and he's not. Okay, so he's like, "I want to play. I got all this pent-up energy. I'm not as good as Matt, undersized. I'm going to take it all out on Bernardo Harris."
Yeah.
And they almost win at it in the nastiest fight a football game would see, but then cooler heads prevail.
Could you imagine if that take place today? Because that sideline, it was loose. It wasn't like a bench clearing brawl, but that happened towards our sideline.
No, it was on your bench, your sideline.
Well, it was probably halfway between the sideline and the hash, if I remember right. I remember,
maybe.
And he gets hit, and people came off our sideline. Not 100 people. Yep. But I can remember. I remember looking at John Tice, Mike, who was the tight ends coach, and John Tice was
big and thick.
Yep. Didn't say a lot.
George O'Leary's glasses came off. He couldn't find them.
I can remember. You talk about angry. I remember John Tice was absolutely livid, and there was extracurricular activities, and there was no. I don't know. I shouldn't say there were no fines. I don't know, but it wasn't like. If that happened today, they'd be doing 4 hours of of sports radio and ESPN on that and talking about the problems and fines and suspensions. Absolutely not.
Well, the good news is with you and I,
down memory lane we go.
Needs to happen weekly. The best news is I have something else for you. I absolutely have to put by you, which means you're going to stay for a second segment, and that's around the corner on KFAN.
On the Fan.
All right, I got something for you. First and foremost, at Birk Matt Birk, Super Bowl champion center for the Baltimore Ravens after the 2012. Did you attend the Combine 98?
Yeah,
you did.
Yeah.
Okay, so the cognitive testing, which it's now some SP or whatever it's called, the Wonderlic. Okay,
Wonderlic.
That portion of the equation and the cognitive nature of things that go into it. There are some agents who are having their clients refuse to do the adaptive cognitive testing. You familiar with that?
Yeah.
All right. So, would you venture a guess as to why? Like, why? Okay, so I'm your agent. No, you'd have to be my agent. And you're representing me, and you think I'm going to go somewhere here in the draft, but the cognitive testing part, I'm not necessarily concerned about you, Paul, but I got some other guys over here who are uncomfortable with it. So we as a collective unit at IBA, the Institute for Burke's Athletes, at IBA, we're not letting any of our clients take the adaptive cognitive test, the Wonderlic or whatever. Why do you think they would do that?
Scouts and teams love data. What relevance it has to playing football is debatable, and everybody has their own opinions.
Yeah.
The Wonderlic test, I think it's been proven. It measures your aptitude in taking that sort of test. There's seems to be very little correlation between that test and whether you can play football. It's like the 40-yard dash. some guy's going to run like a 4:40 this year, and all of a sudden he's going to be the talk of the town.
Troy Williamson, man.
And
that's why you guys.
And he's
took
not going to pan out. Why do we run actually? Do you know why it's a 40-yard dash?
Why?
You honestly don't know?
No.
So when I was at the NFL, working at the NFL, we were talking about some things, and I said, "Why do we run a 40-yard dash?" Because a lot of guys were opting out.
Yeah.
And we're trying to figure out, are we doing a service to our clubs and to our, like, is this helpful? You know, it's like basically Troy Vincent was like, just evaluate everything and see what's helpful. So it's like, why is it 40 yards?
Yeah.
Way back in the day, Paul Brown, who was the coach of the
Cleveland Browns
and the Bengals.
Yeah.
They said, well, on a kickoff, if a guy's covering a kickoff, he runs about 40 yards full speed before he's contacted.
Yeah.
So let's see how fast guys can run 40 yards.
I always love that one.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
And that became the benchmark for whether a guy's fast or not. Was 40. So great.
Yeah.
Some guys run a 4.2, and they're Randy Moss, really good wide receiver, ran a 4.2. Other guys run slow.
Moss ran a 4.2 at that size.
He ran a 4.2.
Jeez.
And Moss didn't run at the combine. He did a pro day at Marshall, and it was like 40 degrees out. You've never seen the video?
He might have had the wind at his back.
No, he ran both ways.
Oh, come on.
Yes, it was like a 4.22 going down and like a 4.24 coming back.
Yeah.
You got to watch the video. He's wearing sweatpants. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's phenomenal.
So getting back to the Wonderlic, I think a lot of people just think this is useless. There's really no upside, only downside. And I know this as well.
Yeah.
Rumors always leak that, this player, he scored an 8 on the Wonderlic. It
was C.J. Stroud last year.
Oh, was it? Did he score really long? So there you go.
Yeah, he was pretty bad.
I know from somebody who's going to remain nameless, who works at the combine. One day he's driving in his car the day after the combine, and he's listening to sports radio. And it breaks that so-and-so scored a 6 on the Wonderlic and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
He had the stack. Now, this is 20 years ago, okay, where you had to, like, hand grade the Wonderlicks.
Yeah.
The stack of Wonderlicks from all the combine participants were in the front seat, passenger seat of his car.
I can't wait to get the name.
Yet to be graded.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And on the radio, they're reporting... So a lot of false information gets thrown out there by.
They could just make it up and say, "Okay, prove I'm lying."
Well, who would you be really happy with? I'm not following it.
Yeah.
Who could the Vikings draft at 11 as a quarterback that would make you feel really good? Who are the top guys? Caleb Williams.
I would say, well, at 11, okay, or who would they end up with? Like,
don't overthink it. Just give me a name.
North Carolina's Drake May.
So right now, Drake May is going to go top 3.
Yep.
But we want him to fall to 11 as Vikings fans.
Sure.
Well, if I'm Kwesi or somebody else, if I'm Ryan Grigson, I can say, "Did you hear? Drake May got a 0 on the Wonderlic." You start to spread that out in the media, and that gets run, So I think
see that's the old Lawrence Taylor trick. Okay, now it's same fishbowl, different rock. Just follow me with this.
Following
Lawrence Taylor the night before playoff games, he would get in touch with, let's just say, ladies of the night.
I think it was not just playoff games.
Okay.
I think it was every game.
He would get in touch with ladies of the night and compensate them, and there's nothing to be had for him. No, I need you to go to these 3 hotel rooms at this time, bang on the door. They'll look through the people. They'll go, hey. They'll open it, and, just go keep them up late. We got a big game tomorrow.
And it didn't faze them.
It's to find the distraction, to find the edge or whatever. It's unbelievable.
I got to tell you, I just saw the Parcells Belichick interview. You or the show where they sit them both down and they talk about the Giants, and it's amazing. It's been out for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Belichick tells a story, and Lawrence Taylor was there. And Belichick tells a story about how, of course, Belichick starts his meetings on time, right? Yep. 9 a.m. we start meeting. And it's 9 a.m. and everybody's in the room except LT. And Belichick starts the meeting and no LT. And it's like 9:15 and LT rolls in the morning, rolls in for the meeting. And somebody asked Bill, why'd you start the meeting? Or no, somebody asked Bill, how come you didn't find him? And LT said, I was wondering, why'd he start the meeting without me?
I always love that one.
Okay, now, and I'm certainly not here in one-upsmanship because this little aside is not as good as yours, but I want to amplify it. It's not from that, but it's a separate NFL Films thing where I mean, coaches after games, okay, when they run and you got security, Chorus, Clowder,
Big Dom.
Rollins, Big Dom, whomever, running the coach out, looking for the other coach, waving.
Wave.
I mean, seriously, is that not like the most superficial, phony conversation that ever has had in the history of phony conversation? How are the wife and kids? Like, I'm tripping on your wife's name. What's
Adriana.
Adriana. Okay, it's Allison, and then your 4 kids. Make sure everything's well. All right, see you later. Bye. It's ridiculous.
75% of the time, it's just perfunctory.
Perfunctory is the perfect way to put it. All right,
it's a Childress word.
So it was. I don't know I can't remember the linebacker for the Patriots. It was not for Abel. It was stand-up guy who was really, really good. And he was very, very young. And the Patriots had just beaten them in a tightly contested regular season game. So Belichick's walking out there to do his thing. The other coach is like praising that guy, saying, wow, I mean, he was busting off the edge like Lawrence Taylor. And then Bill was like, well, as he's walking away, he's like, all right, see ya. Well, I wouldn't go that far.
I always love that one.
Just walked away. Well, I wouldn't go that far. So, I mean, it drops in the strangest places. So what I did was I found Wonderlic practice test questions.
Mm-hmm.
So got about a minute and a half.
By the way, there was no more pressure on any combine participant in the history of the combine. No more pressure on anybody than me taking that Wonderlic. Think like, what if I'd have scored a 12?
A 12 out of 25?
No, it's 50.
Oh, it's 50. Oh, I think it's 25
No,
now.
it was
25 questions, 2 points a question.
There we go.
The Wonderlic was 50 questions.
Yeah.
And so you don't think when I went to the combine,
you would have been drafted in the 7th round, not the 6th.
I was going to run a slow 40. I was going to have a weak bench press.
Well, you were fat.
And I was going to, so I was like, I need to ace this.
Yeah.
And if they were like, this guy can't even ace the Wonderlic and he went to Harvard?
And he's fat?
Yeah, he's puffy.
Puffy.
What was your score?
So I've read online that
22?
I scored a 50.
Oh, come on.
I've read it online.
Of course. Guess what? Isaiah Kazavinsky scored a 52.
He did not. I scored 46.
Right. The words adopt and adapt have blank meanings. Similar, contradictory, or unrelated.
Unrelated.
Bam. 1 for 1. Which of the following is the earliest date? This is so stupid. July 12th of 2146. June 21st, 2146, June 13th, 2164, June 15th, 2146, Feb 28th, 2164.
Well, it's the second one, but that's hard to do auditory.
Yeah, that's dumb.
Here's what made the Wonderlic more difficult.
I want to do this.
It wasn't the questions. It was 50 questions. You only had 12 minutes.
Right.
So you've got to go quickly.
Lickety-split.
They're trying to see how fast you can process.
But then you got people like you who will cover their answers and the bubbles with their left arm if they
you're competing.
right-handed.
Yeah, it's competition.
Well, that's great. I mean, Kazavinsky needed those answers.
I didn't need Flozell Adams acing the Wonderlic test. Okay, he was going in the first round already.
Oh, that's brilliant. Last one. In 28 days, a person saved $42. What was the person's average daily savings?
$1.50.
It was $2.
Good Lord. $1.50 in like 15 and like 5 seconds. Well done.
It was less than that.
Well done. Love you. Hope to see you next week, all right?
Sounds good. Thanks.
That's Matty Birk, and that's the Birk Bit, weekly 9 to noon. Put a wrap on the show around the corner and say bye-bye. Into
Listening to KFAN.
11:50. Everybody have a great weekend. Best of luck to the Wolves this eve clock against Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks. Likewise for the Minnesota Wild. The Minnesota Wild taking on a markedly more formidable foe than are the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now the Milwaukee Bucks out of the bye, out of the All-Star break, perhaps they've reconstructed some things and worked on some things and will be better than they were going into the break.
Do you tend to lean that on Doc at his feet? Or because I've also heard Dame and Giannis both kind of confirm, like Dame doesn't know how to do what Dame does his entire career now with Giannis.
Yeah.
And vice versa. They've acknowledged that. Because it's so easy to pile on Doc right now, given the record since he took over.
Right. My from outside the covenant from afar answer, having not, really read up on this or watched the Bucks a lot, just looking at the record from afar. It's the first thing that jumps out at me is Damian Lillard is a more coveted basketball player than Jrue Holiday. but never will be in his defensive class.
Yeah.
Never. Dame just does. Dame's here to score. Dame's here to pass. Dame's here to set records for hidden threes, and he's one of the best in the history of the NBA. Drew Holiday is the overused cliche, the dog. He's just a dog.
Yeah.
Big spots, ends of games, gets up in your mix, and you ain't getting by him. So then take it a step farther. They used to have Grayson Allen. Grayson Allen.
Good defensive player.
Yeah, forget, kick you in the junk guys at Duke, doing his Draymond Green thing. But he's scrappy, and people think about him when they watch him on film because of the way he runs through picks.
They used to have speaking of Villanova, DiVincenzo was a good defensive player, and when he was healthy, and not a box score type of guy, but he was a good defensive player too. He's gone.
So my answer from afar is their perimeter defense is absolutely it's one of the worst in the NBA.
Yeah,
and they could put Giannis out, up on the arc to defend people. Now you got Brook Lopez down low, and he's got to deal with younger players, and Bobby Portis supplants him, and Chris Middleton not playing has hurt them a lot. Jay Crowder is going to hit you 2 threes a game, but Middleton he's just a wonderful all around player. So I don't even know if Middleton's back tonight or whatever. But that would be my answer. I wouldn't put it on Doc. I wouldn't put it on the players. Even though it needs to go to one of those entities.
Yeah.
I'd put it on whomever made the decision where we're going to be better having Dame than Holiday.
Right.
Because, hey, everybody knows Damian Lillard is better than Drew Holiday. All right, well, what are you going to do when you got to stop, Cade Cunningham, and you can't do that? What are you going to do when you got to stop Halliburton? Shoot, we can't even stop Cade Cunningham with Dame Lillard. So that's what my answer would be. Now, the Wild this evening, this Edmonton team ain't no joke. I told you I watched a period of Edmonton-Boston the other evening, and I'm like, what in the hell am I watching here? And it was only 1-1. But the players, the size, and it just was unbelievably fast and physical. And, you saw a couple of teams where you're like, if those teams met in the Stanley Cup final, I wouldn't be surprised. They are of the bomb variety. And I think Boston won in overtime, 6-5. So that's the squad we hooked tonight, Edmonton. And, if you can win this game tonight somehow, some way, from under the cover of darkness because it's a late game on KFAN, you're probably a playoff team in the first place in my estimation, like what I argued with Mick Taka 2 weeks ago. They're 5 points out with 3 to jump and 30 to go. And so therefore they're cutting into it. But there's a hump over which they're going to need to navigate. And a big step would be beating Edmonton this evening. And best of luck to Ben Johnson's team this weekend against Freddie Hoiberg. It was fun chatting about them today and watching them last night. I'm Paul Allen. Thank you very much for listening to 9 to Noon. Here comes the Con with a wrap on the show.
And thanks to Casey's bringing you the 9 to Noon show wraps and bringing you sweet deals, whether it's Casey's Rewards, food and fuel. Start your Monday off with free coffee, but of course, get that large one-topping pizza, original or thin crust, and get the second one half off. It's a Casey's. Stop into one today. Almost noon. Time to say all of the goodbyes. We have the attention span of fruit flies. Good laughs, wiping tears from my eyes. It's a Friday, so I'm hunting for fish fries. And we devise a plan to keep Kirk. And I still have no clue how the hell it'll work. Behind him, a highly touted rookie would lurk. If it doesn't pan out, fan base goes berserk. Hey, Matt Birk, down memory lane. I'd read the texts, but most of them are profane. Commitment to hatred feels to me insane. But hey, keep them coming. I love the inane. And a window pane, flip the close sign. Next week, it's off to the NFL Combine. Cheers to Howard from Chicago, keyword benign. Celebrate dodging that big landmine.
I know, right?
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show, or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.